Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for another story here at Annie Narrates. The title for today's story goes like this. Step-sis steals the family heirloom my mom left for me. I tell her fiance all about it, and he dumps her at the engagement party. And my whole family wants to go no contact with me now. My mother left me, 24 female, her family ring when she passed away. For context, she passed away when I was 13. She battled cancer for a really long time, but in the end, she was no longer able to fight it. I love her and I miss her every day, and that ring was one of my favorite memories of her. It was something that tied me to her really closely, and it got me through many tough times in the years following her passing. My dad remarried when I was 15, and that's when I met my stepsister. Gotta call her Hannah, 17 female. My stepmom was nice enough, but I miss my mother. And I felt betrayed that my dad married so soon after her passing. So I never made any real efforts to get to know them or bond with them. Hannah moved out for college the following year, so I never had much of a chance to get close to her anyway. Because of all this, my stepmom, going to call her Beth, 58 female, ended up just ignoring me most of my life, which was perfectly fine with me. However, when I was in high school and Hannah would come home for the summer and Christmas holidays, she always made it a point to make things as uncomfortable for me as possible. I would always find her going through my stuff and taking things without asking. It drove me absolutely insane, but whenever I complained to her mom or my dad, they always said that she's my sister and I have to compromise to quote-unquote make the family work. I'm not typically a confrontational person, so most of the times I will let it go, and she did usually return my stuff. I know this sounds petty and immature, but it was really annoying having essentially a complete stranger come over and take your stuff without asking and just having to be okay with it. In my senior year, she took a necklace that belonged to my mom that she left for me. This was maybe the first time I really got angry and actually yelled at her for taking it. Her mom instantly jumped to her defense, saying I was a selfish, spoiled brat. I got an earful from her that day, and they both told me that I was the reason everyone was having a hard time adjusting in the family, and I needed to let go of my mom's death. I think whatever little amount of love or respect I had for my stepmom died that day, and I told them they would never be family to me. Hannah began crying, which was just so cringe-worthy to watch considering she was 21 years old, and my dad, who had just gotten home from work, started yelling at me too. This might not seem like a big thing, but I started absolutely hating where I was in life, and this was a very pivotal event that contributed to that. When I graduated high school, I chose a university that was across the country. My family is from California, and I went to school in New York. I still went home for the holidays, although I avoided it as much as possible. Hannah had gotten a job in our hometown by then, and moved back into my dad's house for some reason, even though she was a grown woman. Anyway, every time I went back, Beth and Hannah made sure to make my life as uncomfortable as possible. I was always expected to share my things, and my privacy was always invaded. They never did anything outwardly evil, like some sort of movie, but they were super passive-aggressive. Every time I told Hannah she couldn't borrow something of mine, Beth jumped in with some lame taunt like, "Oh yeah, be careful Hannah, she might throw a fit like in high school again," or something dumb like that. Again, I ignored most of this stuff, because I like to choose peace. In my senior year of college, I decided to visit home for the holidays with my boyfriend, whom I am still together with. This is when things got really messed up. Hannah spent all those 2 weeks hitting on him, making moves, and saying suggestive things. Many of these were in front of me as well. My boyfriend Jason, 24 male, asked her a few times to stop too, and I told her she needed to stop being weird. Beth stepped in as usual to tell us that we needed to learn how to take jokes and stop harassing her daughter. The irony was ridiculous. This whole situation got even worse when she decided to quote-unquote surprise Jason with boxers with her face on them one Christmas. I don't think I have to explain how gross that is. Jason threw them in the garbage bin right in front of her, and this cued my second screaming fit. I yelled at her for being a disgusting person and called her some very colorful words that were not my best. This led Beth to start yelling at me, saying I'm an ungrateful, spoiled brat who can't take a joke. Jason and I packed up and left. I graduated that year, so I moved in with Jason in New York and started working there. I only visited home occasionally after that, and that too was mostly for Christmas. Hannah always gave me the cold shoulder, or made passively aggressive comments at me along with her mom. The same year, in 2021, Hannah started dating a longtime friend of hers, whom I'll call Dave, 27 male. He was a really sweet guy, and he would come around the house often when I was in high school. They had known each other for years, and I knew he liked her. Don't ask me why, because I will never know. They got engaged at the beginning of this year, 2023, and I decided to visit home for a bit during the summer. I was working from home from around May onwards, and that's when I decided to go home. Jason stayed behind. I think he didn't want to get involved in any more of my family drama. She was supposed to get married in August, and they decided to hold their engagement party in the middle of June. I figured I would stay there till then. Well, as soon as I reached my dad's door, Hannah greeted me more warmly than I think she has in the entire time we've known each other. I was immediately on edge because, knowing her, and after what she pulled at the last Christmas we were together, I was in no mood to deal with any more of her crap. I got to know the reason pretty soon though. Almost as soon as I had unpacked, she and Beth sat me down and said they needed to talk to me. They then went on to say that they wanted to put our differences behind us and wanted me to be more involved in her wedding. I wasn't sure where this was going, so I didn't respond. Then came the real banger. Hannah said that she had always wanted to wear a ruby ring for her wedding and engagement party and wanted to know if I would give her mine. This brings me back to the beginning of my post. The vintage heirloom ring that my mom had left me was a giant ruby and very expensive and old. I would also like to remind everyone here that neither she nor her mom had even apologized for their actions from the past Christmas, and the whole thing once again annoyed me. I told her that I would not be lending her my ring because it was very expensive, very important to me, and also a family heirloom I wanted to pass down to my kids someday. This did not go over well. Beth started her whole lecture about how sisters need to share, and I can't act like this because my birth mom gave it to me that I didn't have to share with my sister. Honestly, I was so baffled by her rebuttal that I didn't even say anything. I just got up and left. I still cannot figure out the mental gymnastics required to think that was an okay thing to ask, and then try to justify with an argument like the one Beth gave. Like an idiot though, I stayed. Please don't ask me why, because I still kick myself to this day for it. Fast forward to the middle of June. Her engagement party was set for the 16th, and the night before, while I was getting my outfit ready for the next day, I happened to notice that my ring was missing from its original place in my jewelry box. I was certain that Hannah had taken it, but just to be sure I hadn't misplaced it myself, I looked all over my room and through my things first. I couldn't find it, and it was like 3 a.m. in the morning, so I figured I'd get some rest and see to it the next morning. The next day though, I could not catch a hold of Hannah or Beth. They were both understandably busy, and I didn't want to cause a scene on the day of her and Dave's engagement party. More out of respect for Dave, honestly. The party was supposed to be held in my dad's house because it's pretty big, and the backyard and the garden are perfect for these sort of things. And the party was supposed to start at 3 p.m. After spending the morning helping out, I decided to wash up and get ready myself. At 2:30 p.m., I got ready, went down to make sure the final touches were done, and went to greet any of the guests who decided to come early. Mostly family members. This was when I saw Beth and Hannah on the far side of the garden. Walking towards them, I suddenly caught sight of Hannah's hand, and you guessed it, she had on my mom's ring. Every time they pulled something like this, I am shocked by their audacity, and I don't even know if it's because they're genuinely evil or if they're just unbelievably dumb. I got so angry again, and just as I was going to rip her hair out, guests started arriving. It was already 3 p.m. by this point, and as I greeted people, I could see people from her family asking about the ring. I'm not gonna lie, I got so angry and overwhelmed that I just started crying. I went into the house to get my head together, and that's where I ran into Dave. He asked me what was wrong, and I'm not sure what came over me at that moment, but I told him everything. I started ranting about how Hannah had taken my mom's ring, which was a very expensive heirloom, even after I explicitly told her she couldn't have it. I told him how this was a regular habit of her, and how her mom always just went along with it and excused her daughter's actions like she was some sort of child. I then told him what happened last Christmas when Jason and I were here, and how perverted and gross she acted. Dave was already visibly angry and upset at the fact that she took my ring. But then I told him about what she tried to pull with Jason. He became very clearly pale. I apologized for starting all this on this day, but he told me it was okay and that he would take care of it. I was too emotional to do anything, so I decided to go fix myself in my room for a bit. I spent maybe half an hour there before going back to the party. When I got back, things were clearly not okay. I walked in slightly disoriented to see Hannah crying, Beth yelling, and Dave just standing with a stony face. When they saw me enter, Hannah got up and started running straight at me. Please keep in mind that at this point there were still people at the party who could see everything that was going on. Hannah started yelling at me while crying, starting with her usual line of me being selfish, a bad sister, and so on and so forth. Beth joined in, yelling all sorts of stuff at me, saying it was wrong of me to accuse Hannah of theft when the ring was still right there and I could have just asked for it back instead of going to Dave. They were also apparently angry at me for telling Dave about what she had said and did to Jason. I honestly couldn't understand what they were screaming about and didn't care because I was too overwhelmed by this point. I told Hannah I wanted my ring back and that I would be leaving afterwards. That's when Dave came over, handing me my ring and apologizing for the trouble. I packed up my stuff and left for New York pretty soon right after that. I had switched off my phone on my way back to New York because I'm an anxious person and I didn't want to face any more people. When I finally got home to Jason and turned my phone on, oh dear Lord, there was a lot waiting for me. I had multiple missed calls from my dad, Beth and Hannah, as well as several texts from other family members. I decided to ignore everyone except my dad, and I called him back. He sounded absolutely pissed and told me that Dave had called off the engagement, that Hannah was a wreck, and that it was all my fault. I told him I didn't do anything to mess up her relationship, and this was all her own doing, and she shouldn't have stolen my stuff. My dad informed me that they would be cutting me off for ruining Hannah's life and that he never wanted to hear from me again. He said I was no daughter of his and that my mom would have been ashamed of my selfishness. That cut pretty deep, and ever since, I've been in a bit of a funk thinking about it. I feel terrible, and I'm starting to think I should apologize to my family and try to fix things. I don't know where to go from here. The whole thing was a week ago, but I have not been able to get over it. Jason has been trying to console me as much as possible and has been telling me that none of this is my fault. I'm not too sure though, because he's my boyfriend and loves me, so he would obviously take my side. I want to know what to do, and any and all opinions and advice would be welcome. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? First of all, thank you so much to everyone who has replied here. It's been only a couple of days since I last posted, and I've calmed down a lot since then. I've tried to reply to as many DMs and comments as possible, but there have been so many more than I expected that I'm just going to address the most common questions here. Where was my dad during all this? He never really talked much, and when he and Beth got married, she pretty much overshadowed him in everything. He was at Hannah's engagement party, but he wasn't really getting involved in anything. When I was 15 and told him I didn't want him to get married, he brushed me off and stuck me in therapy instead, which clearly didn't help much. Why did I keep visiting home despite strongly disliking everyone there? I had only ever known my house, and while I loved being on my own in college, I didn't want to lose that little of my quote-unquote family was there. I didn't want to lose what little of my quote-unquote family was there. While I was constantly resentful of my dad, I still loved him and didn't want to be alone for the holidays. I took Jason home only after dating him for about a year, so I didn't just dump all my family drama on him immediately. Why didn't I hide my ring better when I knew that she had a habit for going through my stuff? Honestly, I think I'm just dumb. I didn't think she'd go through my suitcase, which is where all my more expensive stuff was. She and her mom mostly went through my wardrobe and vanity, so I just didn't see it coming. Especially after they asked me for permission, which never happened before, and I had clearly said no. Also, why would I attend her engagement or even stay in contact after the way they treated me at Christmas? I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I didn't want to cut all ties immediately. I've already got a lot of comments here telling me that I'm better off without them, and I shouldn't care if they go out of contact with me. But I'm still so bothered by it. I hate the fact that these people hate me and won't be contacting me anymore, and no amount of logic will fix that for me at the moment. Other than that, nothing new has really happened yet. I did text Hannah to apologize to her for the way her party ended up and for her failed engagement, but I made it clear that stealing from me, especially something so important to me and my mother, was unacceptable. She cussed me out and blocked me last night, so there's that. That's the only update for now, but again, thank you to everyone who chose to make time and reply to me. Hi everyone, so it's been a couple of days since my last update. A lot has come up, and I definitely feel a lot better now. Like I said in my original post, Dave was a really good guy. Hannah and he had been friends for ages, and he used to come home with her a lot when I was in high school. She always told us that they weren't officially dating, and the Christmas she messed things up was the one year Dave couldn't make it because he had to be with his own family. I texted David yesterday, apologizing for creating a scene and saying that I hope he could forgive Hannah since my ring had been returned. I told him that I overreacted, that it wasn't a big deal, and that I would hate to think their relationship was ruined because of me. A lot of you here suggested that there was no way that he would dump her and break their engagement just for taking a ring from her stepsister, and you all were absolutely right. He texted me back last night to tell me that it was okay and not my fault, and that he was sorry I had to be related to a person like that in any way. As it turns out, the ring was only a small part of his decision. What really got to him was what I told him about her behavior with Jason. He told me that they started dating at the end of 2020, which meant he and she were very much together during Christmas of 2021 and had been in a serious, long-term relationship. I'll be honest, whatever I was expecting out of this conversation, it was definitely not this. He told me that she had a habit of flirting with other men and had even cheated on him once at a party. That he knew of at least, and they had decided to work on things and stay together despite that because of how in love with her he was. She had sworn it would never happen again, and Dave had actually thought this would be it for them. However, when he got to know about her shenanigans with Jason, he said something inside him just snapped, and he no longer felt anything for her. While it wasn't technically cheating, I would be pretty upset if a person I was planning on marrying acting like that with someone else too. He said that was the main reason he dumped her, and the fact that she had a habit of stealing and, in general, being a terrible person to me did not help. While this was sad, I have to admit, I was super relieved to hear it. I still felt guilty that I was the reason he got to find out about it, and it hurt him. Dave told me that he was glad that he got to know them and was able to get out of it before they got married or had kids, since that would have made things way harder. So yeah, for now, I am pretty happy with that. It turns out, Beth knew the whole time too. David told me he had gone out for dinner with Hannah and Beth shortly after they started staging. So Beth was fully aware of what was going on. I asked him if my dad knew, and he didn't know. First thing tomorrow, I'm going to call my dad and talk to him about this. I know everyone here has told me otherwise, but I don't want to lose him after losing my mother. So I'm going to give it one last shot. Hi everyone, it's October now, so it's been a couple of months since I last updated. I am so sorry, but I completely forgot about this post. And it wasn't until I checked my app yesterday that I saw the notifications. Anyway, once again, a lot of things have happened, and I thought I would give everyone a little update. I had to go through my last update to sort of remember what I had said. So I did end up calling my dad after talking to Dave. I told him everything I knew, and he was actually speechless. He asked to speak to me in person and flew to New York a couple of weeks later. I told him everything in person that I had been told by Dave and showed him our chat so he could see the proof for himself. Dad looked really hurt, and I honestly felt so sorry for him because he did really love Beth and he had lost his trust in her for the first time. He apologized to me for how he reacted at the engagement party and said that he did want to mend things with me. I think I started crying at that point because my dad had never spoken to me that way before, kindly and lovingly. He was shocked and asked me what was wrong. I told him that I felt really disconnected from him and had always thought that he disliked me since mom died. Dad did a double take at that and apologized profusely to begin with, telling me how much he loved me. I couldn't speak at this point, so I showed him my original post. After reading everything, Dad looked even more hurt. Long story short, we have since been working on our relationship. I don't plan on visiting home anytime soon this year though, since he and Beth are still together. I still have no contact with my stepfamily, but I don't care much anymore. I have my dad, and I actually feel really great about it. Now onto the main reason I've been so busy. Jason and I are engaged. If you couldn't tell from the multiple exclamation points I used, let me tell you that I am so excited. We plan on getting married at the beginning of the next year. I love winter, so the wedding planning is going on in full swing. We plan on having a small ceremony here in New York, and I feel like stuff has gotten so much better since this time 2 years ago. Don't want to jinx anything though. And yes, Dave and my dad are invited. So yeah, thank you to everyone here who talked some sense into me. I'm also probably not going to update anymore because I moved on from that part of my life. If anything does come up, you guys will be the first to know. And that was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again. We'll be seeing you in the next one.